to have you with us, man.
Hey, John, how are you?
Doing fabulous. This week, the U.S. Senate is going to vote on sweeping bipartisan legislation. Yes, it is true. Bipartisan legislation. It's not an oxymoron. It does happen. Obama must be out of town. No, he was in a mosque yesterday. Anyway, bipartisan legislation. It's called the Energy Policy Modernization Act. Hey, I got to tell you, where did they come up with these names? Right? Like the Affordable Care Act. Now we have the Energy Policy Modernization Act. Like, who would not be in favor of that? Like, I'm not for energy policy modernization. I'd rather be for the Energy Policy Neanderthal Act. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're really good at getting those titles, and maybe even perhaps a little better than the New York Post front page titles. I'm not quite sure. So
they are very good at that. They probably hire the headline writers for the Post, right, or the Daily News, one of the tabloids. Now, this bill is seeking to modernize the nation's energy policy for the first time since 2007. And the bill is of particular importance because it would eliminate red tape and bureaucratic red tape by streamlining the approval process of U.S. liquefied natural gas export projects by specifically requiring the U.S. Energy Secretary, yes, we do have one of those, that's the guy with the hair, to issue a final decision on any application no later than 45 days after the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission or the Maritime Administration has concluded its review. Now, the Energy Secretary, you've seen him on TV. He's got to do something with that hair. I don't know what the deal is with that, but he goes around once in a while with Secretary of State John Kerry on certain issues. So anything that would require that guy to get rid of red tape, I'm in favor of it. How's this whole thing work?
Well, what's interesting, whenever you mention bipartisan, I'm actually one of those people that gets a little squeamish and I get a little worried. But this is actually a good thing, and as you summarized, it's actually looking to remove red tape and the bureaucratic slowdown. Right now, if you want to get a permit to build a facility to export liquefied natural gas, exports are a good thing. One would hope that both sides of the political aisle would agree on that. Right now, the process just drags on. And there are projects in the mix right now that have been that are still stuck there for years. So, there is no deadline, and this is a very common sense measure whereby saying, hey, listen, you got to do it by now. FERC is done, and you've got 45 days to get through your review process. A very reasonable amount of time. And actually, I believe it was the Energy Secretary when he was up on Capitol Hill. He was asked about this, and he said, listen, whatever the law says, we'll get it done. So that makes you wonder why they can't get it done in 45 days now, but government is government. So this is a step in the right direction. It's a big plus. We know what's going on the energy front. In the short term here, obviously prices have been falling, which is good for consumers, but the energy sector has been hit by it. Over the long run, we've become the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas. So the game has completely changed over the last 10 years in our favor, which is a great thing. And there's no reason why we should have bureaucratic slowdowns if we have the opportunity to export natural gas, and by exporting, therefore increasing production here at home and generating economic growth, jobs, higher incomes. That's all good stuff.
Okay, Raymond Keating, Senior Economist, Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council. Now, this is going to run into opposition in Congress, no doubt. Okay, based on your analysis, what is going to be the genesis or the catalyst of the usual suspects that are going to line up saying that this is a bad idea? What's going to be their argument?
Well, I think you've got two things going on. There is some wrangling going on in the Senate right now, from what I understand, about they're trying to tie the Flint water crisis in and federal monies on that front and so on. So, again, it's one of those things where you don't want to see legislation made. It's like watching sausage being made. But, in terms of the long-standing opposition, that comes from, quite frankly, the extreme environmentalists, the green groups, that don't want to see any kind of production of carbon-based energy. They certainly hate coal. We know that. They don't like oil. Natural gas, which is, burns cleaner than either of those. They're like, maybe for now, but certainly natural gas is on their target list. So really anything that allows us to produce more carbon-based energy, those groups are going to be opposed to it. That's the bottom line.
It doesn't really matter what the facts are. It's a knee-jerk opposition, whether, like you say, it's coal, it's oil, it's shale, it's natural gas, it's nuclear, which is clean. They don't like that either. I mean, if it's not powered by a windmill or something or a solar panel, they don't like it. And it's so ridiculous. I mean, I just got to be honest with you, Raymond. It's so ridiculous because it's like they'll argue for more solar energy, and then they'll fight against the transmission lines to transport the energy. It's like they think there's some kind of magic, like you're going to put a window up on the sky and the energy just magically flows into your home. It's like it's got to go through a power grid.
Yeah, that's the word, magic. They think that government can just wave a magic wand and change economic reality and change how the world works, and we know that that's not the case. And when government does try to wave that wand, we all wind up paying higher prices. We wind up with less economic growth, less job creation. The other point here to understand is the argument you're going to hear is, this is going to benefit so-called big energy, big oil, however you want to put it, big natural gas, if they use that phrase. But it's always important. As I represent a small business group, it's important to understand that when you look at key energy sectors, these sectors are overwhelmingly populated by small businesses. When you look at the drillers, when you look at the support operations, when you look at oil and extraction businesses, guess what? It's 91%, 81%, 78%, depending on which sector you're talking about. They're populated by firms with less than 20 workers. So this is very much a small business issue. That's why we're talking about it, quite frankly, at the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council.
All of this energy policy and I'm for pipelines, I'm for wires, I'm for solar, I'm for wind, I'm for natural gas, I'm for fracking, I'm for anything that brings jobs to Americans and inspires a manufacturing base to come back into the United States. That's also, by the way, I'm opposed to all these trade deals. So it all ties in. You're either for jobs or you're not. It's simple as that. And in order to get jobs, you need energy. In order to get energy, you need stuff to produce the energy. That's how stupid this is. And you're right on target, Raymond. It's about small businesses and jobs. It isn't about big oil or big this or big that. It's about average working class Americans getting good paying jobs. In order to have that, you have to have the energy. Now, this is the impact to Virginia. According to a report from ICF International, Virginia would enjoy nearly 9,000 new jobs by 2035 and a $1.3 billion in estimated income contribution. More than half the states from California to New York would see their income gains from natural gas exports exceed $1 billion by 2035, in addition to at least 6,000 jobs. So this is all about jobs. And the thing is, people don't understand, that those of us that are long in the tooth like me, we remember the Jimmy Carter gas lines of the 70s and how he wanted to have energy independence and how that was a dream. And now we have it. I mean, now we're in a position, we've got so much energy, we want to sell it overseas. And all that does is create jobs for us, get money for us. How would anybody be opposed to any of this?
Well, it is bizarre. There is opposition. We already talked about some of the green movement. Then there are some other folks that are hung up. You've got a couple of industry players and businesses saying that, well, if we export natural gas, that's going to mean increased prices here at home. And you know what? Economics doesn't work that way. If you have additional opportunity, guess what? You can produce more. And study after study shows that, if you allow for greater LNG exports, guess what? We're going to have greater production here at home. So, this is really a win-win-win all the way across the board in terms of manufacturers right here at home They've benefited tremendously from the drop in energy prices, and they'll continue to benefit. The energy sector, as I said, would benefit from increased production in terms of exports. And then obviously workers, consumers are all going to benefit. Workers are going to benefit from more jobs in the energy sector and related jobs, and you see higher incomes there. And then obviously the savings that come when you purchase natural gas as a small business or as a resident. Same thing goes obviously on the oil front and the price at the gas pump. So this has been a dramatic turnaround, as you mentioned. 15 years ago, we were destined to be dependent upon foreign sources of energy for as far as the eye could see, and this was part of the justification for subsidizing solar and wind and so on and so on. Well, guess what? It's changed dramatically because of why? Because of private sector innovation and investment has changed the game, and we've gotten things like hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, and we now can get to energy resources. We knew they were always there, but we figured there's no way we can possibly get to them in an efficient, economic way, and guess what? We can do that now. So everything has changed. We need to really update our policies to reflect that. We need to also be talking about removing other regulatory barriers, and we need a president that stops bashing the energy industry. We really need to be saying this is a tremendous opportunity for us. Why not take advantage of it?
Look, you're spot on, and this is a bipartisan bill. Hopefully, our two Democratic senators, Senator Mark Warner and Senator Tim Kaine, once New Hampshire fades in the memory and they kind of get off that because both of them are there right now, if not physically in spirit, backing Hillary. But once that fades, look, this is something our two senators have to take a serious look at because America has a plentiful supply of low-cost natural gas that is going to meet the domestic demands for decades, but allowing it to be exported overseas creates income for us and jobs for us. And why not have that opportunity? That's why I was in favor of lifting the oil export ban, which was, right, as you know, put in place in the 1970s under a very different time, where it said, look, we don't want to be selling oil out of the United States because we have to have it for our own purposes, so we're going to restrict that. But that's all changed now. So I think this stuff makes sense, right?
Oh, spot on. Absolutely correct. I mean, the economics have changed dramatically. The markets have changed. We are now, as I said earlier, the largest, who would have thought this? The largest oil and natural gas producer on the planet. So let's take full advantage of that and get the government regulations and red tape and bureaucracy out of the way. That's the bottom line. And you know what? It's the same for every industry, isn't it? Quite frankly, we have the most productive workers on the planet, or among the most productive workers. We just need to get government to stop imposing regulatory burdens, tax burdens that make us non-competitive. Get those things off the backs of entrepreneurs, businesses, and workers, and let us go out there and compete. We can do it.
Just get out of the way. Overall, again, economic benefits. The Department of Energy commissioned 2 reports to examine the impacts of increased natural gas exports on the U.S. economy. Both reports found that economic gains increase with scenarios where more gas is exported, period. Okay?
Yep.
Those you can't argue with the facts.
Those are 2 reports from the Department of Energy that have come out within the last year, and then also the 2015 economic report of the president said the same exact thing. The economist there said that increased exports of natural gas would be a good thing across the board for U.S. employment and growth.
All right. Well, we just got to keep fighting for this. This is one of those issues that the left-wing media is going to spin it a certain way, so we got to get the truth out. It's called the Energy Policy Modernization Act. It creates jobs for Virginians, good-paying jobs, and so we're going to be lobbying both Senator Mark Warner and Senator Tim Kaine to take a favorable view, especially Mark Warner. He's like Mr. Enterprise, Mr. on the cutting edge of technology. I would think that he'd be all over this. We'll find out. We're out of time. We want to thank Raymond Keating, Senior Economist for the Small Business and Entrepreneurial Council, for joining the fight on U.S. energy jobs and independence right here on the John Fredericks Radio Network.